All right. Hello there, everyone. This is Clay with ModernLove.life. I have a special video here that I want to share with you today. As I've brought up in recent videos on this channel here, I'm at a interesting crossroads in life where I'm realizing that I just don't have the drive and motivation to continue on running Modern Love as a business owner or really as a coach. And I just feel like a lot of my energy is just pulling back, and I just need to take a step back from all of that. I'm not going to go over all the backstory behind that right now because I don't want to make this video drag on unnecessarily long. But over the past few months, I have been in conversation with another coach about taking over Modern Love. So today I wanted to introduce you to Clayton Olson, who is going to be taking over Modern Love so that you get a chance to get to know him, what he's all about, and hopefully see that there is still a path forward for Modern Love to help you on your relationship journey. Because I didn't just want to close down shop and all that, because I know that there's obviously the people that work for Modern Love that we want to continue to take care of, but also you as people who have put your trust in me and believe in the message that I have. I want to help you continue on this path as well too. And I thought that Clayton Olson would be a good coach. Some of our techniques might be a little bit different, but I think our core underlying philosophy on relationships and how we bring ourselves to our partners and to our relationships and everything else like that is fundamentally aligned. So without further ado, I did want to introduce you to Clayton Olson.
Hey, Clay. Good to see you. Good to talk with you again. I know that you and I have known each other for probably the better part of a decade at this point. Yeah.
That's right. For those of you that don't know, like way back when I was first getting started, Clayton was actually working with a different coach at the time. And believe it or not, our introduction was simply just, hey, we have the same name. It's not particularly a common name, but hey, we should talk. And
Yeah.
so we did. And it turned out like, hey, as both of our businesses grew, especially when my daughter was born, really sent a lot of coaching clients your way that I couldn't take on myself. And so we do have this pretty long history. I know we met in person like 10 years ago. The internet and hey, world events have kept that a little bit difficult over the past few years. But yeah, we have known each other for quite a while here.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's been cool to just get to know you and get to know your business and also Mika as well. And yeah, some of the people that I talked to that came through Modern Love were just incredible, with such an incredible following of intelligent, ambitious people that are really trying to dedicated their own growth and wanting to create a better love life. And oftentimes, more than not, the breakup that they're going through was the catalyst. To this day, I actually still have a couple clients that I'm working with that I've been working with long term that have come through your community. I think there's a lot of alignment there. And Clay, when you reached out to me several months ago, just the timing was pretty synchronistic. And there was just a way in which I was really diving even deeper into the space, another layer of working with people going through breakups and the power and the transformation that a breakup offers in one's life. So it just felt really aligned to say yes to this opportunity and to carry the torch. I'm honored and humbled that you thought of me. And I'm excited to talk with your community about my philosophy and also give them a warm introduction to who I am and what I'm up to in this space.
Let's go ahead and talk about what your philosophy is, because I can imagine that's probably what might be on a lot of people's minds out there that are listening to this or watching this here is like, hey, what is this guy all about? Can he help me get the relationship that I want? So
Yeah.
I guess maybe you can go into what your philosophy is or how you might help somebody on such a journey here.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the past, let's say 14 years, I believe I'm on my 15th year of doing this work full time. Yeah, I came into this space working with people going through breakups, and they were either trying to move on from the breakup because it was just so painful and they were wanting to really mine the experience for the gems and really stop the bleeding, stop the pain, and be able to get themselves back. Or they were really looking to create a possibility of a new beginning with somebody, to have a new relationship, to get a second chance. And that really was me diving into the deep end of the pool with people immediately because going through a breakup, it's such a potent time in one's life where we can often find, and I speak from personal experience along with working with many clients at this point, Sometimes it's like a breakup can really catch us when we have fallen asleep at the wheel in some way, or we start to get taken over by some type of pattern, or something starts to happen in the relationship that we don't feel like we have control over. Maybe there's a certain way that our unconscious patterns start to show their head or ugly head in the relationship, and we start doing things that we're not proud of. Maybe we get really controlling, or maybe we get distant, or maybe we start to self-sabotage. And the breakup can be this real reckoning where maybe for the first time in our adult life, we really are brought to our knees and are invited to look at why we have been showing up the way we've been showing up. And it presents a really powerful, potent opportunity to start to do the deeper work on ourselves so that we can upgrade our relational operating system and begin to create a new experience of relationship, not only with ourselves, but with other people in our life, whether that is our ex or the next person that's going to come into the next chapter. And so, my philosophy at a core level is really do the deeper work on oneself. I believe that how we show up in relationship and the results that we see in relationship are 90% our way of being, 90% our mindset, and 10% tactics. And so I really take an inside out approach where I'm looking at the identity level narratives, the core beliefs that one has about themselves, about other people, about relationship, and start to shift those gently and respectfully so that the natural byproduct of that is the behaviors and the things that you say out loud and the kind of questions that you ask and the way that you present yourself, it all starts to flow naturally from a very congruent, new, aligned way of showing up with yourself and with other people. So think that's kind of a 30,000-foot overview of really how I approach relationship. And that stands true whether it's somebody who's coming to me who has been in a series of relationships that have gone nowhere, and maybe they're not in acute pain, but they're realizing that something needs to change because they're the common denominator across all their experience, or they're in the middle of a divorce, something that maybe it's a 10, 15-year marriage, and all of a sudden they're about to, everything is crumbling away from them. Maybe they're on the other side of the divorce or the other side of the breakup, separation, or they are looking down the barrel of the gun of that relationship ending. The philosophy stands the same. Take it as an opportunity to look within and look where you can take responsibility and start to do the deeper work on oneself.
Great, awesome. Now, as a coach who's doing similar stuff, that all makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of maybe somebody who hasn't done a lot of this before. Can you tell me like more what that might look like? Like,
Yeah.
let's just say you and I were to start working together in a coaching sort of capacity. Like, what would you have me do? Or how would you measure success? Or what could you imagine the path moving forward might look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the actual tactics of how we might show up in a coaching relationship together definitely depend on whether you're in an acute amount of pain right now because you're going through a breakup, or whether you're in a generally neutral spot trying to create a new relationship. So let's just actually, for the sake of your audience and people watching right now who might be going through a breakup, if you're in a breakup right now, maybe you're a couple months out and you're still feeling like you're in that kind of dark night of the soul, the first thing that I would want to do is just really get a deeper understanding of just what happened in the relationship and what ultimately led to the breakup, but then also start to bring more awareness to where is it that you were perhaps co-creating that dynamic? Where were you co-creating that dynamic for the things to end in the way that they did? And it's a real gentle process to dive in there and do this because a lot of people tend to be in a place where they feel really guilty or they're blaming themselves. And so part of this also is being able to really move through the grief of that last relationship ending with a more empowered stance, with a more trusting stance. Oftentimes, what happens is I see people trying to get back together with an ex because they're trying to avoid the pain. They're trying to avoid walking through the transformation that's in front of them. When a breakup happens, there's a portal that we get to walk through where, in some ways, a part of us dies. And on the other side of that, a new version of us is waiting for us, a new exalted version, a new empowered version. But if we're trying to get back together with somebody out of fear, and we don't want to feel what's happening, we don't want to move through the grieving process, we don't want to really confront ourselves, then getting back together with somebody ends up being a band-aid that will ultimately end up leading to the exact same outcome. And I've seen that happen time and again. And so the more that we can really slow down and actually make it less about getting back together with them for the time being and really more about helping you face what you are being very much in some ways forced to face within yourself, and looking within and looking at some of the beliefs that you had, look at some of the ways in which the how you might have showed up in the relationship was either anxiously attached or avoidantly attached. Those are, and that's another real important frame that I bring in is attachment theory. We can start to help you find a new foundation so that you can begin to trust yourself on a deeper level, so that you can begin to know that if you were to get into another relationship, whether it's with that person or someone new, that there would be fundamentally a new relationship, a new way of relating that would be available to you. And so some of that work might look like examining where you learned certain things in the past, how you learned to love, what you learned from your parents, what you learned about relationship in your family of origin, all the way to also creating a deeper vision of what it is that you're actually wanting. Maybe even doing a relationship audit of looking at, okay, what was happening in this last relationship? Was it really meeting all of your needs? Was there places that you were betraying yourself? Were there places that you were compromising, places that you were shrinking, places that you were overly controlling, right? If we can audit that last relationship and start to help you really see the places where it was off kilter or not working, oftentimes what happens is we can start to move into a deeper level of acceptance around the ending of it as well, because we see that maybe the relationship in its current version actually had to end. And that doesn't mean that there's not a possibility of a new one, but if we can actually come into acceptance around the last relationship had to end, there's just a new way that we can start to orient towards the future. Rather than trying to save something, rather trying to get back together with somebody, rather than trying to fight reality and convince our ex of something, we can actually start to align with them that maybe the wisest decision was to actually end the relationship and allow that version to die so that something new could be reborn on the other side. So I'm saying a lot right now. Maybe we can pull on the thread of something, but I'm hoping that lands the plane or brings it down to a little bit more of a kind of tactical level without getting too detailed.
Yeah, yeah, and just listening to explain all that, I'm seeing, like, a lot of overlaps in how you would approach things and how I would approach things as well too. Like that relationship audit, that sounds a lot like a sort of 5 by 5 evaluation that I've had people go through where they go and look through, "Okay, what are, like, the 5 most important things for me in a relationship that maybe don't seem obvious to me that I should maybe get ahead of myself, be smarter than my own instincts and say, "Okay, I know what I need is this and this in a relationship." The must not have qualities where it's, okay, maybe there is a part of me that feels drawn towards narcissists for some reason. Maybe I need to give myself a little breathing room before I jump all in on everything and say, "Okay, am
Yeah.
I starting to see any sort of narcissistic clues or something in this behavior, in this
Yes.
dynamic here?" I also just want to touch as well too, you did mention attachment styles, and in the past, I have discouraged people from fixating on this. Not again, not people misunderstand me. It's not because I don't believe in attachment theory.
Yep.
Obviously, how you're raised and your relationship with your parents and stuff is going to affect how you bond with people. My only caveat with all of that is when we start to see our partner as an avoidant, or when we start to see them as something else, that we lose touch with them as a human and we stop saying, "Oh, they're doing this because they're scared." And we start saying, "Oh, they're doing this because they are this label."
Yeah.
And so that's my only explanation that I need to offer there. I do believe, obviously, that how somebody is raised by their parents is going to affect how they interact with
Yes.
others.
Yes, and just to double down on that too, I completely hear you on the using these titles of avoidant or anxious or disorganized as identity level statements that trap somebody in something where it can dehumanize them and pathologize that other person. The way that I look at it is it's more of a cluster of certain behaviors that we might unconsciously be doing in the relationship that ultimately lead to its demise. But I do encourage people to stay away from just trying to label somebody something because we end up throwing the baby out with the bathwater. But those attachment styles can really help us understand the different defense strategies that we were unconsciously deploying in the relationship that ultimately blocked intimacy, that
Oh,
maybe
yeah,
blocked
sure.
presence, right? So I love talking about it from that perspective, and I completely agree. It's like we got to be careful because I do see a lot of this whole attachment theory has become so popular in the last 5, 6 years. And one thing that's become really popular is demonizing avoidance, right? And if someone's an avoidant, they're a lost cause. They might as well be a narcissist. They're out there ruining people's lives. And it's just simply not true. So there's a lot of misunderstanding around that. So it does require some education and some piercing through that and getting to the deeper mechanics of what's happening in the behaviors that are ultimately causing the relationship to sputter out and not last. That's
Yeah, exactly. I think that attachment styles can be like a huge tool for your own personal exploration as well too. If you
yes.
happen to realize maybe you're an avoidant, okay, what if you stayed with that intensity of whatever you're feeling for maybe a little bit longer than feels comfortable?
Yep.
Could there be some kind of breakthrough that comes through that? And if you know that you have that tendency of maybe pulling back or something, maybe you could challenge yourself to stay with it a little bit longer. Or maybe if you pursue a little bit too aggressively, what would happen if you leaned backward a little bit? I
Stood
don't
full
know, but
attention.
just
Yeah.
something worth exploring.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I also wanted to ask you too, do you have any like client experiences that maybe you could share about maybe some wins that previous clients have had or anything else that might be maybe inspiring or motivating for other people out there to hear?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, over the years, I've definitely had a number of people that I've worked with who have gotten back together and also married their ex, had a child with them. I've got one in particular that I'm thinking of. I'll call her Deborah just to for anonymity purposes, but she was found me after going through a breakup, and she was really anxious about the entire experience. She was approaching an age where she was really wanting to have a family, and that window felt like it was closing. So there was a lot of anxiety around that. And that anxiety was causing a certain level of reactivity to happen in all of her actions. And so there was a desperation, a begging, an obsession that was occurring in how she was trying to pursue getting back together with this guy. And a lot of our work from an attachment lens was actually helping her come into this deeper, secure place of confidence and balance within herself and to develop a more empowered relationship with the unknown as she stepped forward into possibly reconciling with this man. And it actually took a couple months. It took several months. And part of the work that we did was helping her detach from the outcome, which was really big, really look within and do some of the deeper work to help her come into a more trusting relationship with life and more of a perspective that everything that is happening to her in her life is actually happening for her, right? That there's gems and there are insights and there's ways in which all of the experience are going to grow her. And the details of there's a lot of details of how we would do that in a coaching relationship. But ultimately, her way of being before we started working together was she was anxious. She was losing sleep. She was in a spot where she was in desperation. She was in a one down position to this guy, really blaming herself, stuck in this place where she was blaming herself. And then she would switch and start blaming him and caught in this drama triangle, so to speak, where she was looking for the relationship, getting back together to rescue her from herself. And through the work, we helped her develop a deeper foundation of trust within herself, of confidence, of operating outside of urgency and from a place of patience, and then really learning how to show up and communicate from a place of value, communicate from a place of offering invitations, communicate from a place of really taking responsibility and being patient and being open and being authentic. And what ended up happening is they slowly but surely developed a new foundation. Rightfully slow, it took a little bit of time because nobody wants to go through heartbreak again, right? And it's very
Sure. Yeah.
important to take your time on these things and not to rush back into it because you really want to stay connected to yourself if you're building a new relationship and not try to escape into the illusion of this person choosing you again as being ultimate security. It's not. It could very well end again if you're rushing. The security has to be found within yourself, and that was the work. And they ultimately ended up getting back together. They got married. They have a kid now. And now the things that I'm coaching her on are trying to figure out how to transition her identity out of this kind of corporate career that she was in into some of what she's taking on for the season of life as being a mother. And where are they going to live? And how is that going to interact with the politics of their family? So it's just been a really beautiful journey to watch that unfold. I've been with her every step of the way. And yeah, I've got another experience too that comes to mind right off the bat with a gentleman who was a doctor that I was working with, and he had been broken up with, and also broken up because there was a way in which he started to realize through our work together that he was not really stepping up and choosing her from a place of power, but rather he was in this place of kind of half in, half out, and he didn't even realize it until we really started working together. That there had been a way in which all of his relationships he was half in and half out. One foot in, wanting the relationship, but also keeping them at arm's length. And through our work, helped him actually set up a scenario where he got really clear on what he was doing and where he wasn't aligned, and got really clear on what he wanted and the problems that he was willing to say yes to, right? The problems that a relationship actually creates, and say, you know what, I actually want to go all in on this. And he ended up having a really powerful conversation with her at one point through our coaching where he was able to sit there with her, hold her hands, look her in the eyes, and just with certainty name what was going to be different and what he learned through the experience and what he wanted. And that conversation really moved things in a completely different direction. He showed up in a way that completely surprised her. And yes, it took a little bit of time for trust to continue to be built, but overall, they ended up getting back together. And I just think that I want a name for anybody listening to these things. Like, people break up and get back together all the time. That's just a part of life. I'm a product of my parents breaking up and then getting back together, right? Like, I think that almost every significant relationship, or I'd say maybe 50% of the relationships I see of people that are happy and they're married, if you go back in their past and you look at what happened right before they got married, there was a breakup and then there was a reconciliation after a couple months. And so I just think it's really natural for certain versions of relationships, they have to come to an end. And the breakup is a way in which there's a death process of something that's not working. And then we have to be curious around, okay, is there a newer version that wants to come online in order for us to take this to the next level? So we can get totally caught in blaming ourselves and losing perspective if we don't realize that is the arc of many people's journeys in their life.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's very often overlooked as well too, is that if you go and talk to some of these like people that have been married for decades and decades, many times you will find that it hasn't always just been smooth sailing. Don't get me wrong, sometimes it is, but many times you'll find that they hit a rough patch along the way and maybe it just got really weird, or maybe they actually did break up, or who knows what happened. But there often is this process of rediscovering, of growth, of transformation before they are able to come together and make the relationship work the way that it needs to, where it's getting both of their needs met.
Absolutely.
Um, so what I am hearing here, if you don't mind me being a little bit coy here, is
Sure.
you're not just telling people to do no contact for a month and then write a handwritten letter, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, that would be the tip of the iceberg, right? There no contact might be involved, a letter might be involved, but that is not the end all be all, right? That would be maybe a sliver of something, but it would be based in it would be based in a grounded, authentic philosophy of what is authentic to that person and what is true. For instance, I'll give you an example with no contact. My take on no contact is that it's not a strategy to get somebody back. No contact is a way in which you actually come back to yourself. And then when I recommend no contact to people, it's not so that you can create some type of disturbance in their field and get them begging and crawling over broken glass to come back to you or get them missing you. If that happens as a secondary or tertiary outcome, that's one thing. But the primary purpose in my world of no contact is it's a way for us to stop the reactivity. It's a way for us to stop the obsession with the other person and to allow ourselves to heal and to get perspective. I believe that when we go no contact and we take a little bit of space, we kind of zoom back with the time apart starts to allow us to zoom back. And as we zoom back, we start to see more of the perspective of what was actually happening. We start to see more perspective on the relationship. We start to see more perspective on who we were being in the relationship. And that perspective is transformational because when you start to see and have greater awareness of what actually was happening in your relationship and was actually happening with you have more choice. You have more choice than to re-engage from a different stance. So that's, I think, the power of no contact is to go through some of the grief process and have more agency and intentionality of how you engage in the next point of contact.
Yeah, great, great. I think we're very much aligned on all of this. Just
Yeah.
this whole conversation, it reminds me of this particular scene in Breaking Bad. It's been out for such a long time. I don't think I'm
Yeah.
dropping any spoilers here, but there was this time when Walter and his wife Skylar had broken up, and he's just sitting there in his meth lab or whatever, and he's just thinking there must be some combination of words that I can put together in just the right way that are gonna get her to come back to me. And I've worked with so many people over the years that have been trying to find that magic combination of words. But through some of the stories you've shared, it's not necessarily about the words, it's about the consistency of showing up as someone different, of inviting your partner into a completely different kind of dynamic. And that's what I'm
Mm,
hearing in a lot of the client stories that you've shared, in many of the things that you've said over these past however long we've been talking here, is that,
mm,
hey, this is an opportunity for you to transform how you're showing up
mm,
in this dynamic. And given enough time and consistency, you'll start to inspire trust from your partner that, hey, this isn't the same old here. I'm not just walking back into what wasn't working the first time here. I can see through these small moments of accumulating trust that something fundamentally is different here. That's like really what I'm getting from this conversation here. So,
I
uh,
yeah.
go ahead.
I completely agree. It's using the breakup as a portal to walk through to a new way of showing up. And that doesn't mean an inauthentic way of showing up, but actually to come into perhaps remembrance of your wholeness, your completeness, your precious value as a human being, to come into more contact with your heart and your love rather than fear, because a lot of the stuff that creates a relationship ending is that we started to plug into places of fear. We started plugging into defensiveness. And so this is about a re-engagement from a deeper, more heartfelt, more loving, more open, honest, integral place within yourself. If I was to point to that territory that we're ultimately wanting to guide people into. And then from that place, what is the most aligned thing that wants to happen? When I work with people and I get them into that spot, sometimes they think, whoa, wait a second. Wow, don't know if I want to try again. I don't know if that's actually best for me. I'm realizing that there's a way in which if I was to step back into this, I'm realizing I have standards that they would need to agree to as well. I have places where they are actually going to need to grow, where maybe like part of my stipulation is we actually have to go into couples therapy for me to even consider having a second chance with you. And so it's not about coming from a one down position and maybe getting them to grant you the second chance. It might be that you elevate to a place of, oh, got it. In order for this next version of a relationship to work, this new experience, I am going to have to come in with more clear and fierce love and stand for the possibility of what we could create together. And it actually requires to use more of my voice around what I need versus diminish myself. Yeah, just I think it's an important point too.
Yeah, that is so important, actually. I know that a lot of people who want to save their relationship, maybe initially they just think, I got to get them to change their mind. I got to get them to give me a second chance.
Mhm.
If you really stop and think about it, there are probably things that were happening in that relationship that weren't working for you as well, too.
Yeah.
And you want to honor that by getting to the place where you can talk that through with your partner and seeing if there is a way that maybe they can make certain changes as well too to meet you halfway. Additionally, I think this is something that we've been maybe dancing around the edges of here, but there is also the possibility that maybe the two of you aren't a good mesh with one another at the end of
Yep.
the day. And I know that maybe somebody out there listening to this now who wants to work things out with a specific person, maybe that doesn't sound very exciting, moving on and dating somebody else. But I promise you, when you get to the place where you can be more aligned with who you are genuinely inside,
Yep.
and you draw to you somebody who matches that, somebody who is aligned with your highest version of yourself, it's not going to feel like you're just settling. They're the one that got away and you're just settling for whatever's left over. It's going to feel perfect, exactly the way that it is when you meet that person that just meets all of your emotional needs and you are able to meet them where they're at, and the two of you can just create this beautiful life together.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah, people typically in the throes of grief and breakup, they don't understand how good it can get after this if they just keep going forward in their healing process, right? That as you really come back to yourself, like you're saying, and find that more aligned relationship with yourself, what becomes possible with another person is far beyond anything you can actually imagine or that you had. And that's just the result of going through the grief, coming out the other side into a more secure, confident place within yourself. Sometimes there's a false belief I hear people say, it's God, it took me this long to find this person. It took me, however many years to find this person, 35 years, 40 years, 45 years to find this person. And my reframe in that is actually it took you 45 years, 35 years to be ready for this level of intimacy. And now there is no going backward. Like the next level of what you attract is going to be in a completely different ballpark of quality, of transparency, of love, if you take this breakup as an opportunity to do the work.
Yeah, let's be honest too. In a lot of cases, that 20, 30, 40 years that took somebody to get to that place was often very unintentional work. It's just stumbling through life, things happen, whatever. But if you were to take a level of intentionality and place it on yourself and on your life, perhaps with some degree of relationship coaching, you could probably get there a lot faster or get to a deeper level much faster as well too.
Yeah.
Just because it took you a long time to get to a certain level, it doesn't mean it's going to take you an equally long time to get to whatever the next level is after that.
So there's a book that was written in the 1980s by a guy named James Carse called Infinite Infinite versus Finite Games. And infinite versus finite games was this concept that we can approach life from a stance where we are in a zero sum game where there's a winner and there's a loser, where we're trying to win, we're trying to get to some type of goal. Or we could approach something from an infinite lens where the purpose of the infinite game is to keep the game going. And what I've seen over the last decade and a half now of working with people is that a lot of folks inherit very finite ways of looking at relationship where we're trying to get married, we're trying to get the person attracted to us, we're trying to get our ex back, which is a very finite way of approaching life and approaching relationship. In reference to breakup specifically, this is a model that I've created around this philosophy that I think just really captures these two different worlds that we're talking to, where when people get through a breakup or when they're going through a breakup and they're maybe trying to recover lost love, they tend to default into this kind of finite approach, right? Where they're trying to save, fix, or recover the relationship. They're feeling broken down. They're trying to maybe control the other person, or they feel really helpless and they're trying to escape that helplessness by moving the other person into relationship with them again. Their self-worth is diminished. They say things to themselves like, I'm lost. It's over. What did I do here? And then they see the ex as an enemy or a savior, right? So your ex is this enemy that has done this bad thing to you, or they could be the hero in your life if they just took you back. And then they're stuck playing the blame game as well. If you can find yourself in any of this is so common. I've been here in breakups. I've spent months here in this place. So
Oh
I'm
yeah,
very
sure.
familiar with it, right?
Sure, yeah. Like I see a lot of the finite kind of behavior in like maybe some of the red pill sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all men versus women. We all go off of like sheer biology and sexual market value and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, how exhausting. How exhausting. Yeah, and how limited too. Yeah, and it's not that having some goals in life are important, right? Having a very maybe a fixed goal that you're working towards, like it makes sense. But when when it's driving your way of being, it makes the journey to that goal miserable. So the idea is to shift over into infinite. And Clay, just based on what I know about what you've been up to and how you approach relationship and the YouTube videos I've watched, whether you call it infinite or not, this is where you are inviting people into and where you want them to live as well, I imagine. So what this looks like is we're creating a new relationship breakthrough or a new dynamic entirely. There is no trying to save, fix, or recover. There is a new beginning, right? Even the name new beginning is an infinite name because you're not saying like trying to recover something. It's this, we're creating a whole new chapter here inside the infinite lens through a breakup, we're actually breaking open. We're not just having our heart broken, but we're breaking open to more love. We're surrendering to the mystery and we're taking aligned action. So we're maybe looking at it from the stance of what this breakup, what if this thing is happening for me? What if this is actually the universe initiating me into a higher level of being with more love, with more vulnerability? What if this is the relational operating system upgrade that I have been asking for and that I really need right now? Here is where we actually learn to love ourselves in the infinite lens. And rather than trying to win our ex back or win the relationship, we approach it from a growth mindset of I'm really going to take this breakdown, this breakup as an opportunity to learn so much about myself. And I'm going to grow through this experience. And yeah, here it is. This is a new beginning. This is not starting over. Okay. And the question of rather than who's to blame, we're asking, what am I being invited to become? Right? Who am I being invited to become through this relationship? So there's a whole bunch of stuff that I've actually created around this. I actually created a 23-minute class on this. People are interested in taking these concepts deeper.
And I'm seeing like a lot of, honestly, my own kind of relationship journey in that slide that you shared.
Mm.
For those of you that may not know, how I got initiated into all of this was, wow, 20 years ago, me and this woman that I had known since we were in high school broke up. And we had been together for 7 years. At the time, like I was like really scared. I just spent 7 years of my life as a 23-year-old with this woman. Now I was out in the real world. I didn't know how to date people in the real world. I didn't know how to go up and talk to strangers and get them attracted to me and all that sort of stuff. I was honestly scared. And I remember I had this like very vivid moment where I was like, you know what? I don't see how this is going to happen. I don't see what this is going to look like, but somehow I'm going to take this awful experience and turn it into one of the best things that's ever happened to me.
Mm.
And it was like, okay, I'm terribly anxious and shy. Apparently, I got to lean into that a little bit. I have all these limiting beliefs about myself. I need to lean into that. I just used the next couple years to really push that and transformed in a lot of just unimaginable ways. Obviously, I met my wife and have this relationship and this daughter together with her as a result of that. But additionally, I just grew as a person where here I am talking on YouTube, and that would have scared me to death,
Yeah.
honestly, back then.
Yeah.
And so just so many beautiful things have come from just being able to push past those limitations myself personally. And so I think there's a huge amount of truth to what you just shared in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful, man. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. It sounds like you really used the breakup and all that pain as a springboard to leap exponentially in your life and just almost like enter a different timeline, right? Like the Clay who would have been in that relationship still, I imagine that the relationship built from high school was largely unconscious, right? Just because what do we know really then at that point? And some people they make it work. They have families very young and it works, and other people we can get stuck in something and the relationship becomes a tomb where we just stay really safe. And all of a sudden here you're talking about it. Oh, okay, that broke down and now I'm entering the real world, right? It's like you're out suddenly cast out to figure things out on your own. And you did. And what a blessing because of just look at the life that you've created. Yeah. And you've created a way of turning that wound into something that has supported you for the past 17 years, which is incredible.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people can make that choice too. If you're listening to this, I imagine you're going through some sort of relationship challenge or breakup or something. Hey, for better or worse, that's where you are now. So you might as well try to find a way to turn that into something amazing in your
Mm.
life. Because you can do that. You can make that choice, even if you don't see the path forward, even if you don't see how it's going to work out. You can make that happen. It also kind of reminds me of before we had our daughter, we were at this point where it's like, should we have kids? Should we not have kids? I feel anxious about, can I handle that responsibility? What if I screw it up somehow and my kid hates me or whatever?
Yeah.
And I remember I was at this conference once and I was talking to this woman and somehow this came up and she said, if you don't have kids, you're going to have amazing and beautiful and wonderful experiences that you'll have never had if you did have kids. And if
Mm.
you do have kids, you'll have amazing and beautiful and wonderful experiences that you'll have never had if you didn't have kids. And so it's like, okay, wow. If you think about that,
Mm.
yeah, As you mentioned earlier, there is cost or a price to pay, whatever you choose. But if you look at it as no matter what happens, you can find a way forward to win in your life.
Mm,
And if you just fully believe in it, that can unfold for you.
yeah, 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 I love that. It's really taking your seat as being an author of your life, of choosing the type of experience you want, choosing the type of life you want, and making good with the material that you have in front of you versus feeling like a victim to it. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, it sounds like that's what you do a lot with your clients. Is if they're in that kind of victim-y sort of place, you
Yep.
help them climb out of that,
Yep.
and you just like really help to illuminate a path forward for them that they can step forward into.
Absolutely. Yeah. Helping them elevate out of the victim consciousness, right? Which is, I think that the majority of people in our society live in victim consciousness where life is happening to them. And I think a lot of advertising speaks to that, right? Speaks to people's victim consciousness, provides some product that's going to make you feel whole or better or higher status. And yeah, I think that this process of going through a breakup can really illuminate the places where wow, I feel so disempowered and helpless, and I feel like a victim to this. Why is this happening to me? And it is. It's just such an amazing opportunity to start to move into being a creator of your life, moving from victim to creator and taking that journey. And you learn how to do these things through a breakup. This is another piece that I think is so important. It's like you learn how to do this in the dark depth of going through despair and heartbreak. These are universal skills that then translate to every other area of your life. It's like you learn how to do it here, the breakup becomes a crucible. It becomes an alchemical container for you to do some deep work on yourself and learn how to actually move into that creatorship. I see the clients that I work with start to do that in their work. I see them start to do that in their relationships with their family, where suddenly their family starts treating them differently. Their friends start treating them differently. The woman that I was talking about before, Deborah, she ended up getting a $60,000 raise as a result of going through this and finding her voice in a completely new way and asking for what she wanted from a place of authority and power and gentle power. And so the consequences, I believe, of turning towards this time period with intentionality and that authorship that you're speaking to is it can change the rest of your life moving forward in so many categories.
Yeah, so true. I think we often have this sort of siloed look at different areas of our life,
Yeah.
relationship, our health, our money, our career, whatever. But sometimes it just seems like we're just doing something in isolation. But if you have the courage to ask somebody that you actually really want to be in a relationship with, hey, can you make some changes in how we show up with one another? That can easily translate into asking for a promotion or maybe having the discipline to maybe follow a certain health protocol or something like that. I don't know.
Agreed.
But it can absolutely show up in other areas of your life. But don't just think of whatever you may gain from this relationship journey as just solely focusing on your love life.
Yep.
But how else could it spill out into other areas of your life? Because in so many ways, these areas are all interwoven, where maybe you're unconscious in your relationship dynamics. Maybe that's showing up with your family, or maybe that's showing up with your work or something else. And as you start to shine light on one area, as maybe an example of a relationship, maybe that starts to illuminate other areas as well too. Absolutely. I think it's really cool when I get follow-ups from clients like that as well too. There was this one time I was working with this guy through his relationship and cool, whatever. It got to wherever it was. And then I just didn't hear from him for just like years. And then I jumped on this live stream or something, and the system sent out an email to everybody. It's like, "Hey, Clay's going live," or whatever.
Mm.
And this guy pops up, and I'm like, "Oh, whoa! I haven't seen from you in ages." And he's like, "Yeah, guess what? I'm like a multimillionaire now because I just was like applying all this stuff." And I'm like, "No way, dude! That's amazing."
Incredible. Incredible. Yeah. 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 It is all so interconnected and woven together. And I see the breakup. I think the metaphor that comes to mind too is just it's like an atom splitting. It's like an atom splitting. And if we build a kind of fusion reactor around that through a set of beliefs and perspectives, the breakup is it's so much power and so much love being released that we can just allow that to start to power other areas of our lives and we can give that love that's breaking open to so many other places that just transform everything. So I really love that visual of an atom splitting that creates a chain reaction that actually just creates power. And it's like, and if we don't have a container around that, or we're not sure what's going on and we're in victim mindset, it's like that atom splitting can be like a bomb going off that just creates a bunch of chaos and has us fall into darkness. But again, it's energy. It's all energy being released, and we can direct it in a particular way that we can really use to raise our level of consciousness to
Yeah.
victim to creator.
Yeah, like I said a moment ago, you're going through this breakup anyway. You could just let it be another lousy thing that happened to you the way that a lot of people in society might tell you to, or you can harness that energy and direct it and use it to explode other areas of your life into a massive leap forward in some way, or even just your
Totally.
relationship as well too. That's perfect. No one's saying you have to go get the $60,000 promotion, although
Right. Yeah. Or become the
I will certainly
multimillionaire.
not
Yeah.
stop you from doing that.
Yeah. 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 I think what we're pointing to is that there's a lot more choice that becomes available to you of what do you want to do with this energy as you position yourself in a really solid way of being or particular mindset. Are you familiar with the dreaded drama triangle? Has that been something that you've taught your
I do not know that term.
Okay, so the dreaded drama triangle is, imagine a triangle upside down, basically, right? On one end, you have hero. On the other side, you have persecutor. And at the bottom, you have victim.
Hmm.
And what I see happen now, this is something that was taught in the 1970s through a model called transactional analysis. And it was taught in companies. It helped people understand that when there's a dysfunction in relationship, people tend to start to occupy one of these positions where they're either the villain, the hero, or the victim in the dynamic. And often what happens when we're going through a breakup is we find ourselves in the victim position, and then we're making our ex either the hero or the villain.
Mm.
Okay. So we either are saying, they've done this to me. I can't believe they've done this to me. How could they? Or we start to see them as this hero where if they just would take us back, then it would save us from ourselves and then we would no longer feel like a victim. And sometimes what happens is we'll switch positions. So we might start to, as we go on this journey, maybe you start to feel sorry for your ex. Maybe you start to feel like, oh, wow, now I'm seeing my ex's limitations and there's a way in which they're not letting me into their heart, or they're just going to repeat this with another person in the future. And then you start to occupy the hero position, thinking that it's your responsibility to try to save your ex from their own relational patterns. And so you could slip into codependence where maybe you're reaching out to them from a place of trying to save them. And now you're the hero and you're seeing them as the victim. And if all of a sudden maybe they reject you or they pull away, you might end up moving back down to victim. And then suddenly they're the persecutor because they're rejecting you. And then they might start to feel like the victim because you're chasing them down or you're maybe trying to manipulate them in some ways. And then suddenly you're the persecutor in their life. So it's called the dreaded drama triangle because we keep switching between these three positions in the breakup where I'm the hero. Oh no, they're the hero. Now I'm feeling like the victim and they're persecuting me, or suddenly they feel like a victim and they're trying to draw boundaries with me and blaming me for everything. So now I'm the persecutor. This triangle creates madness. And so I love to just distinguish this with people going through breakups because if you're suffering right now, you probably are caught up in this triangle somewhere.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure everyone listening to this has just been trying to map themselves off that triangle.
Totally. Yeah.
What would you tell somebody to do? Because I imagine just being in that triangle is probably not a great place to stay. What would you
Sucks.
tell somebody to do?
Yeah. Yeah. So the way out of the triangle is actually to, and I'll say a couple things. One, it's no contact is a really good way to get out of the triangle. Okay. So if you find yourself in communication with them and you're switching to these different positions in your communication, victim, villain, hero, going no contact is important because what it does is it allows you to suddenly start to feel the grief of what wants to come up. And maybe you have to process some anger. Maybe you have to process some sadness. Maybe you have to be with the fear of losing them and increase your capacity to be with that fear and realize it's not going to kill you. Because what keeps us in this triangle is an inability to feel the sadness, an inability to feel the anger, an inability to feel the fear of loss. So what we do is we go into savior because we're afraid. We're afraid we might lose them, or we feel really sad for them and we don't want to feel sad for them. So we try to start to over function to try to save them, right? Or we're in the victim position. And we don't actually want to feel maybe our anger, right? We don't want to feel the anger that we have. We're in this kind of for me experience, which I've been there, right? And so the more that we can allow ourselves to feel what is happening through the breakup and give ourselves chance to really process and be with the grief and be with the feelings, we start to come home to ourselves, we start to reconnect with ourselves. And through that, we might start to take responsibility, meaning we might start to see that it's like, hey, you know what? I am going to make this experience into something that moves me to the next level in my life. I am going to grow through this. And that is when we start to move out of the victim and into being a creator, right? We start to move into these different positions. So I have a podcast that I actually talk about this triangle a little bit more in depth, and I'm happy to also, we can give that to people if they want to follow down that rabbit hole a little bit more.
Sure.
But again, it's just such an empowering thing to see because number one, if you're feeling these fear, anger, sadness, you're not alone. Most likely you're in the triangle, especially if you feel like you're suffering right now. And just noticing that you're in the triangle and the way out is actually to take some space and to maybe get some coaching or really start to just allow yourself time to really feel what's coming up, breathe through it, somatically stay with the experience rather than run from it, which is really important part of this transformation that you're in. That can begin to elevate you out of the triangle. And to take it further too, this is the work that I do with people. It's helping them identify what positions they're in. And then also some of the deeper work can help you get out of the triangle as well. Because somebody that's there with you can serve as a mirror to help you see the things that are just in your blind spot. So it's a really powerful model that I incorporate into my coaching. And if anybody can relate to it, wants to learn more, we can send a link or they can have a conversation with me.
Cool, cool. Like, what I'm hearing is that the way that you encourage people to do no contact, it's actually a fairly active process. It's not just
Yeah.
put the phone down, distract yourself for a month, and then hope that somehow something magical happens. There's actual, like, heavy lifting involved in the process, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? There might be some distraction along the way because sometimes, many times, these experiences are just messy and we can really get hard on ourselves and beat ourselves up. And I just think it's really important that people also give themselves permission to have coping mechanisms that might not be the most healthy all the time. Maybe we want to just binge watch Netflix for a day. And hey, give ourselves permission to be able to do that, but also couple that then with, okay, well, now I'm going to have maybe a day of real intentionality where I'm doing some work on myself, right? Where I'm really staying present with some of these feelings and I'm going deeper and I'm examining myself. I'm allowing myself to feel. Maybe I'm getting some time in nature. Perhaps I'm booking a spa appointment, right? I'm taking care of my nervous system. Yes, there's a lot of activity. I think the no contact period that is important. Moments of focus and intentionality as well as giving yourself permission to play too, which is really important because they take themselves so seriously during this time. And it's good to
Sure, yeah.
find some ways to have some levity in it too.
Sure. I guess one question that's popping into mind right now is, how would you know when somebody is ready to be back in contact with their ex?
Yeah, great question. I would say that one key indicator is, do they need to be in contact with their ex or do they want to be?
Hmm.
And those two words carry so much. They're from completely different dimensions. One is a choice, one is born from a genuine desire, and the other one is born from a fear and incompleteness and lack. And if you are noticing, if you're really honest with yourself, you're trying to get back in contact with your ex because it needs to happen and you're really attached to the outcome and you're not okay unless they grant you some level of approval or an indicator that things are moving in the right direction, it might be premature. Okay. If that is the dominating experience, it might be premature. Now, that's not to say over here in the want, you might still have some flavors of that. But if the dominant experience becomes one of starting to move into a place of where I'm having some moments of joy and real acceptance and actual curiosity, and I genuinely want to be back in contact with them because there's maybe something that I want to say to them that I feel like I need to take responsibility for. Or there's a curiosity I have, and I can feel detached from the outcome of them needing to respond in a certain way or do anything in order for me to be okay. You're moving in the right direction of being, I'd say, able to be in contact. Because oftentimes what happens if you're communicating from a place of fear and lack, and that's where you're coming from, your ex is going to feel like you're taking something from them, like you're trying to get something from them. And what that will do is just continue to reinforce their resistance to you. And it will actually tighten the constriction around the possibility of the two of you being able to have a productive conversation. That would be my thought. I'm looking into my own life. I went through a breakup and I ended up getting back together with my partner. And it took me months to get to a place where I was ready to be back in contact with her because I just knew that the place that I was coming from was not, it was not a place I could really create from. It was not a place that I could really create a new ground from. I still had work to do on myself and be with myself. So that's my thought. I'd love to, yeah. How does that sound? Is that similar to what, like how you teach it? And what would be different or what would you add?
No, I think a lot of what you're saying and a lot of what I've been saying for years, it kind of rhymes, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe you have different names for things, maybe you call it a different way or whatever, but I think we're both trying to say the same thing, which I think is why it feels right to pass modern love off to you. But yeah, going back to being in contact with your ex, yeah, I think oftentimes we do need to get that scarcity, I guess as you call it, finite worldview kind of under control. Yeah, it's also not going to be like you're gonna completely transcend it. Like, I don't want
Right.
people to just hold off forever and in some sort of fantasy of someday everything's gonna be 100%
Yeah.
perfect and then I'm gonna be
Agreed.
ready. Because at the end of the day, you are a human and you are gonna feel certain twinges of things from time to time, and that's fine. It's perfectly normal. But you should be able to be okay with your life where it is. Dare I say even love your life where it is with or with them out it, with or without them in it. And if you can get to that place where, hey, maybe your life isn't perfect, you're doing okay. You have things to look forward to. You're not just a reactive emotional mess every day. I don't see why it wouldn't make sense then to consider reaching out to them.
Yeah.
And I think that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I know that there can be so many, like, power games that people play as well too when it comes to that. It's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, well, they should reach out to me. It'd be better if they reached out to me. How can I make them reach out to me?"
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine thinking right there.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I tell people my wife and I will text each other all the time. Usually it's about, like, what we need at the store or something.
Mm.
I'm not keeping score over if she's initiating first or if I'm initiating first. It doesn't matter because 'cause we're just trying to make our lives work. We're just trying to create our relationship and have it move forward. At
Mhm.
the end of the day, I don't care if I reach out to her first or if she reaches out to me. It doesn't matter. So, like, why do we keep score over these like little things at maybe the beginning stages or at this recreation stage of a dynamic here?
Y
Ultimately, it shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
At least that's my thought anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, and I think you bring up a really important point about the power games, the keeping score, the tit for tat. All of that falls in the camp of finite thinking. If we're stuck in the question of who's got the power right now, do I've got the power? How can I get the power back? We're in a finite lens, right? The infinite person, the person in the infinite mindset is more thinking of what wants to be created here. If I was coming from love right now and just like wholeness and completeness within myself, like how would I want to show up? Right? What would make me proud? That's a question that gives birth to a completely different way of communicating when we're in that question versus who's
Yeah.
got the power.
Yeah. And I think the reason, at least for me, why this is important is because let's say I was able to get what I want through playing the power game. Okay, great. But okay, how am I going to feel going to bed at night with my wife with these doubts in my mind? Like, does she actually love me? Or is she just there because I flexed in the right way or negged her or whatever? Does she actually give a shit? I don't know. And that's the kind of stuff that would keep me up at night.
Yeah.
Like if I dropped the act, if I just was genuinely me, would she just be like, "Who's this loser? I'm out of here."
Mm,
Like that would bother me.
yes.
And in that case, even if I win, I lose, and I don't wanna be there. And I don't want any people that I work with to be there, and I don't imagine you do either.
No. Now, one of the things I saw in one of your recent videos, I think you were walking through the forest, maybe a couple months ago. You're walking through the forest and you said something like, "This process is about Just to be frank, it's about being a grown ass adult and saving a relationship. It's not about letting your child self lead the reconciliation process. It's about letting your adult self build an adult relationship, being proud of who you are. And I think that's what you're really capturing here with this is like, how do we be in our adult consciousness and rebuild with somebody that we love where we're in a marathon with them, right? Where there is no winner and loser. That's it. If one person's losing, we're both losing. How do both people win in this?
But if somebody like really wants to sign up and have you coach them, like what should they do? Where should they go?
Yeah, so we'll include a link. There's a coaching application that I've got on my website, claytonolsoncoaching.com/coaching-application. So if you wanted to reach out to me and see if a conversation would be necessary to just talk about what it could look like to work together, if you're wanting that individualized professional support during this time, you can fill out an application, give me a high level understanding of what you're going through, and then someone from my team will reach out if it seems like a fit and if we got some space available. So that's where I would recommend one starts. And if you're wanting to know more about me, definitely click on my YouTube channel and check it out. Like Clay here, I've got a channel with hundreds of videos where you can dive deeper into my philosophy. I've got a playlist specifically on breakups too that I think would be good to watch, and that might open up some more ideas. And just comment below, ask some questions, and I'd be happy to answer them and take a look.
Cool. Is there a certain type of person that you do want to work with?
I love growth oriented, intelligent, ambitious people. Right? Especially people that have, yeah, they really are able to self reflect. And if you're in a spot where you can see that there's something within you, if you really resonate with the idea that this work happens from the inside out and it starts with you, you're already 75% of the way there. And those types of clients are incredibly enjoyable to work with because it feels like in some ways it's like driving a really well-tuned automobile around a racetrack where it's just there's so much that you've already maybe created in your life that you've already got a certain mentality that has worked for you in many other areas, but maybe this area feels like a sticking point. Those are typically the people that are attracted to this type of work. So if that's you, reach out. And also, if you don't hit all that criteria, but you just genuinely connect with me and you feel like there's a resonance with what I'm saying and my way of being, and it's inspiring, then we probably have a fit as well.
Great, great. And I feel like I made the right choice in who to pass this off to. I think that anyone watching this video is in good hands moving forward. And thanks for the understanding with everybody out there during this transition. There might be a few bumps along the way, but hey, we'll figure it all out. But yeah, thanks so much. And I guess we'll be in touch moving forward.